Okay, I want to show off some of the comics I have, or not have, but some of the comic books I have right now. I've had a bunch in Michigan. I've only taken a couple back, taken a couple here and there back home with me, but didn't get all of them. They're still at my mom's house, or my mom sold them all. I told her to. Anyways, these are all the current comics I have. Some of them I saved in Michigan, so be funny to see some of them. Some of them I got while I was in college out in San Diego. Anyways, this is the first issue of Simon Dark. I like that series because it was kind of the wild card superhero under a DC publication, and he was just and he was in the same city as Batman, and Batman and any of Batman characters never made an appearance, so it was kind of cool. Reason why I have this out is, yeah, I like how Mike Turner draws women half the time, even though he's a detail whore. But since Mike Turner has been gone, it's kind of interesting to see. Well, still got to appreciate his art because he did kind of leave a certain kind of legacy behind. I did this one because I thought it would be funny, but this was when DC and Marvel joined companies and made these cross characters. This was Batman and Wolverine, Dark Claw. Suspera. Not really much know about her, but it was the former Chaos publication. This was one of those weird comic series. Uber violence, people die all the time. Another Michael Turner and so on cover. This was when Image, Top Cow, Marvel made their crossover universe. That's Witchblade and Wolverine. The Max, this is the only issue I have of the Max. This was kind of an interesting comic book series becoming, but look at all the detail in that art. That's how the comic pretty much is. Really violent. Interesting enough, the main hero's a vegetarian, non-smoking, non-drug user, which is kind of weird for a superhero half the time, or not superhero, but a protagonist in a dark universe. To Mo, well, I've heard Danny Tucci over on live streams and talking about shit half the time, and I was thinking I was I've had brought a bunch of shit issues with me, but I didn't. They're still in Michigan, but for some odd reason, I brought this one, which was another good series and was under the same publication as shit. I bring it up because Daniel Tucci in his videos brought it up. I only brought this one because it's funny because the poster is in the first American Pie movie. Teenage girls, this is how teenage girls were drawn in the 90s. This was Garth Ennis's first run on the Punisher series in the late 2000s, and this was when the Punisher was still under Marvel and more PG-13. But it's funny, in the first 3 issues, Punisher and Spider-Man have to fight this transsexual assassin who's trying to kill the Punisher. And it's hilarious because Spider-Man looks at there's a meme for it, sees the fucking big ass titties on this fucking, it's actually the Russian whose body's connected to an old woman. This was Loeb and Lee's series on the Hush series of Batman. This was the middle, but This was one of Jim Lee's, I would say Jim Lee's best, because there's just this silent fist fight where Batman's just punching the shit out of the Joker, and you see the lightning and everything. Incredible. It was actually rated in Wizard of being one of the greatest fights in comic books during that time. This is one of the issues of Lock and Key. I got plenty of them, but this is a great series. This is a great series. Fuck Stranger Things. This series is so much better. Ironically enough, it's written by that Stephen King's son, Joe Hill. Looks exactly like him. And that's when IDW was great. Another thing, shout out to, amazing art by Gabriel Rodriguez. Just amazing. Here's another issue of the Punisher. See, the Russian, he's transsexual. Or, I don't know what to say. His head is connected to an old woman's body. DMZ is one of those government conspiracy theories. There's really no superheroes with superpowers. It's more government exploit, which was interesting because they drew some really, really trippy scenes. Oh, this is one character I really liked. I really wish they did more on. Basically, Pitt. He's this brute badass, but what makes it cool is that he came to this planet because he found out that they're brothers. They're half-brothers. And I guess I don't remember too much of the story, but he's an orphan or something. And basically, since they're brothers, they're protecting each other. And, he's kind of the big high-roll moralist. Trying to put him, ironically, on a better road. But I love this series. This was a non-superhero story, but I love this series, Scout. It was basically like The Sopranos set on a reservation. This was like the first issue I bought about this, and it had me hooked because basically, besides the tragedy that went on, there's this interrogation scene where the main character makes this guy pull out his own dick and fucking threaten him that he's going to pour acid all over it. Really great series. Really great. And this was when Vertigo was still great. Yeah, this was a one-shot. This was great. It was a depressing series, but it went dark and it went like a completely different tragedy. Basically, remember the Marvel series, that photographer who was always on the outside? Well, this time he's going around, and instead of the Marvel heroes being superheroes, a lot of them are fucked up. Like, Peter Parker died of the spider bite, gave him a nasty infection and killed him faster. Bruce Banner is just nasty. There was just a bunch of horrible things, like that one guy who followed Bruce Banner everywhere in the comic book series. He was suffering with cancer. It's a really great series, and it was a one shot. And this was God. This had to have been 2008, 2009, just like 10 years ago. And God, 10 years ago, they were still good. I was picking up more Marvel issues than anything else. Oh, this was another one of my favorite series that I wish there was more of. Bad Dog. Basically, this bounty hunter who's a werewolf. An interesting part is he chooses to stay as a werewolf. So he could go back to being a human form, but he doesn't want to. Another great werewolf, even though it was kind of silly, another great werewolf series was Marvel Max's Werewolf by Night. And this was a reboot of their goofier series, but a lot darker, a lot more interesting. Anyways, great art. Another great art. And this was when they were doing their goofy collectible stuff, and yes, I got into it. I don't want to fold it all the way, but this is the cover where fucking Hulk rips Wolverine in half. Great art, great series. The only reason I brought this out is when what's his face from Megadeth decided to make his own comic book series, and I was sold on it because I seen it on MTV. I know a lot of people give Grant Morrison shit. Unfortunately, I find myself with a lot of things I liked from Grant Morrison. This was in the early 2000s, and I wish I kept more of this series. This was a great, interesting series. It had me on the first issue. Basically, a secret government organization kidnapped these pets and made them like mech assassins, hyper intelligent. It was a dog, a rabbit, and a cat. And basically, I guess a guy wanted to, I forgot, but basically this one head guy got freaked out because they could talk and they could understand language, and he wanted them killed because I guess they were developed a conscience. But once again, great series. Another great series that should be picked up into a movie. I tell people this all the time. Unknown Soldier. I mean, if you really want to make something crazy and truthful and honest, I would say this is a honest story. Very much. It's very honest. And once again, this was in the 2009, 2010, probably even 2008. Let's see. And this was still when Vertigo was really, really good. But, and this was just raw and honest. I only brought this out for silliness because everybody remembers the show True Blood. I wasn't sold at the show because they were passing out this comic book. And it was literally an infomercial for this weird blood beer that was coming out called True Blood, TRUBLLOD, because people were trying to be damn vampires. Let's see. See, look it. There's a whole refrigerator of that stuff. Let's see if there's an ad for it. I was living in San Diego all the time, so I'd walk by the billboards every single time and see this shit. This is Old Man Logan. Enough said about that. This was a battle of the cowl, and this was when Batman died, allegedly, but no, Batman never dies. This is the Azrael series. Believe it or not, I actually like Azrael. This is the only few issues I have of The Crow. I love the art. Love these covers. This was... See, the thing about Hollywood and how goofy it is that they already have these characters that were already written and that, everybody's virtue signaling. I didn't even know this, but when I grabbed this issue, I didn't even realize this. The main protagonist who becomes a crow in this one is actually Asian. And he's a father. Hollywood, listen, if you're making another Crow movie and you want a virtue signal race, here's a Crow. Walking Nightmare. Great series. I only brought this one out because I just want to point out that this is like the only Vampirella I have that was still under Harris Comics. And look at that body shape. I mean, Vampirella still looks good now, but it's more of an hourglass figure. I brought this one out too. This was a post 9/11. You see, because where is it? Up here. Because you got the ribbon with the Twin Towers. This was another interesting series too, and once again, this was when Marvel was daring. Basically, this series is about a reluctant. He's deemed a shooter. Basically, he was a bullied kid. Well, not really bullied in this comic, but kind of bullied. But he gets mad, and he shoots this guy who's been paying him to do his homework for him, because the girl he likes actually likes the guy who employs him at a school. So he shoots him, and then it turns out the guy he shoots is actually a mutant. And they deem him a hero because he killed a mutant. So it was kind of one of those ironic stories. This is one of the only few issues I have of Lady Death. Lady Death was just one of them characters. I love the cosplay of them, but I know it's hard to dress up like her. The only reason I have this out is because I was a huge fan of Snake Plissken. Oh, just Snake Plissken stuff and that signed stuff. And I got it signed by Tone Rodriguez. Great artist. Great stuff. I would have loved to seen more of this series, but it was just one of those comic books that were hard to find at the time, because, you know, when the movies were coming out, everybody was trying to be Marvel DC. Anyways, brought this one out because this is the first issue of Cyberfrog. I got this from comic book store. The comic book store owner gave this issue to me. Told me it was going to be special. At first I thought he was full of shit, but nowadays, that guy was right. And this is another great one I'm going to put in my stack. So I got this one off. This is kind of the first Indiegogo purchase I did of Jeff Lafferty's Berserker Knot. The guy is an amazing artist. Amazing. And I really can't wait for more of this series, to be honest, because, you know, it's fun. It's simple, and it's just plain fun, and it's fun to look at, and it's a fun story to read. Anyways, thank you. Well, here's a couple more. This is the DC Rebirth, and why this is so significant to me. This was one of the last few that Ethan Van Sciver was working for DC Comics. I thought this was also a great series too, because this gave an interesting perspective of who Wilson Fisk or the Kingpin was, and there was a short appearance of Spider-Man, and it was a really great series. I wish I kept up more. I love the art in this one. Gabriel Dell'Otto, incredible artist during the time where, you know, Marvel's art was getting intimidated. This guy was up there with Alex Ross, just plain incredible. I brought this one out for shits and giggles. This was the 100th issue of Wolverine. This was when Wolverine, Adamantium, was pulled out by Magneto, and he was turned into a more feral version of Wolverine. I found my Lady Death comics. I said they're the only few. This was the gold chrome cover. God, so long ago. And then this was the Wizard half issue. And I knew I had this somewhere. The first issue of Spawn. You know, they had to make the thing that he was full of necroplasm. Look at that. $1.95. Back in 92. It's another one I kept out. Like, the cover intrigued me because I was always into skater girls because I was a little skater boy. But this was the first issue of Supergirl. And I found this under a series publication. Another comic book chick I jerked off to. Dawn. Great art. Great art. Never really understood what the story was. This was, yeah, Alan Moore did the best Swamp Thing, but this was my favorite Swamp Thing before Alan Moore got a hold of it. And this was the introduction with Batman when he's in Gotham. And one of my favorite things about this part of the Swamp Thing is Swamp Thing makes friends with a stray dog. It's really cool. Anyways, thank you for checking out my oddly long